Welcome everyone to game number 1 in a best of 9 series between Taban and Haza. It is our $100 Sunday show match, and we've got game 1 coming in now with Kamchatka, the map, and Taban taking the Chinese, Haza on the Japanese, and we're just loading into the first game as we speak. Maito, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Who do you think has an edge in this one?
Well, I think personally I prefer China a little bit in this matchup. I don't know how much you know about China. You said you haven't seen them a lot, but they are a pretty weak civilization in the early game and in the colonial age, which makes them more of a niche pick sometimes. Like, you don't want to play them against civs like Russia, for example, that have really, really strong colonials and can really punish you in the early game. But Japan is traditionally a much slower civilization than many others. And as a result, I think that Japan... this is sort of a good matchup for China because they get to sort of skip the early game where they're weakest because Japan can't really punish them.
Okay.
But at the same time, the reverse is true for Japan. Like, Japan is also kind of weak in the early game, so they also get the same benefit. So it's definitely close. It might be dependent on player skill, if nothing else, I think.
All right. Well, that's a good way to go into game 1. It might give us an indication of who might have the edge in this series. And I certainly hope for a close series. It's something I'm always looking for. We'll see what happens in this one, as Haza is going to try and contest the Disciple here and try and stop him getting those goats home by the looks of things. That Disciple is dying off pretty quickly, but the Explorer for Taban's coming over. And there's the Divine Strike, but he's still going to get the goats.
Yeah, still gets the goats, which is really, really nice for China because China's houses, they're called villages, also double as livestock pens, so he can fatten up those goats a little bit more quickly than other civilizations, and it'll give himself a nice edge in the mid-game later on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice pickup for him. Does suck to lose the Disciple, but losing the Disciple for 2 goats is probably a reasonable trade.
Yeah, for sure. And we see now the shrine coming up for for Haza in the middle. I'm going to have to get used to sort of converting that name in my head as he gets that shrine up and he's going to be pushed away. But so far as treasuring goes, we just saw Haza picking up the 30 coin, but no serious treasuring from either player just yet. Are there any treasures really worth picking up at this point? That 90 wood in the middle looks quite tasty.
Yeah, there's quite a few good treasures on this map, actually. They usually spawn along the rivers on this map, so along the middle of the map, just parallel between the players if you were to draw a line, like straight across the map. They usually spawn around there, and then there's some lower-level treasures in the other parts of the map. But yeah, almost every treasure on here is worth taking. It's just a matter of whether or not you can take it safely without your opponent being there to fight you and try and steal it from you or kill your explorer.
Yeah, for sure, and that's obviously going to be something that both players are going to try to avoid. We see Northern Refugees coming in. He's got 1 village, so that'll be 2 villages if I'm not mistaken, which is on par with Haza's 2 villages as well. So economically, a very similar start, it seems, for both players at the moment. And we do see that shrine. Do you think Haza's going to take the sort of approach of going for the Kami, the Heavenly Kami, and building a lot of shrines out here?
Well, since he's already sent 2 vills, I would say he's probably not going to send Heavenly Kami. And this is already kind of an interesting deviation from, I think, what would be expected in Japan in this matchup. Because, as I said before, normally Japan would be fine with this situation because they get to skip the early game. And, they get to their stronger sort of mid and late game. But sending 2 villagers is not a very greedy card with Japan. It sort of helps compensate for the fact that you have a weak economy and could mean that he's going to do something more aggressive. And yeah, we actually see that he's aging up with the Torii Gates Wonder back at home, which gives him a military rickshaw, which can construct either a barracks or a stable, as well as a samurai, which is this. So this is pretty aggressive compared to the normal Japanese start. So I guess he is trying to do something a little bit out of the box to punish that maybe more orthodox China style of play.
Yeah, and we see Taban going up with the Summer Palace, so every 2 minutes or so he's going to get one of those banner armies. And yeah, I think, I've seen Japanese sort of played more recently like this. This seems like to be a more aggressive, sort of modern style of playing the Japanese. Watched a sort of old school player in the New World Championship yesterday going for the this Shrine Wonder, which just buffs the shrines, sending Heavenly Kami, just trying to get those shrines up around the map. But as you say, this could be a lot more aggressive from Hazza here.
Yep, this is definitely something we've been seeing more and more out of Japan, just because no one really expects it, and it is pretty easy to scout. Like, if you take a look at the deck from Japan there, you can see that the ×2 on the 2 villagers card is gone, so if Tabin takes a look, he'll know that Heavenly Kami wasn't sent. And if he continues to check that deck throughout the game, he'll potentially see like military shipments coming through. Hazza's actually shipping 5 Ashigaru right now, for example. So he should be aware that this is coming, but sometimes you just don't look because you expect that really greedy style of Japan.
Sure, and I think he'll know anyway because he sent Freitag. He's going to scout the Torii gates here with him.
Yeah, for sure.
And meanwhile, we do see Hazza coming forward with that military rickshaw, building the barracks in the middle of the map. He's got the samurai here forward as well. And meanwhile, we just see another village from Tabin, but no military production by the looks of things. He did grab that TP earlier on, and we'll see if that's going to sort of help him to get some military shipments out here. Do you think he'll need to send a military shipment now?
I think he already is, if you look at his population. There's the 8 Chukonu going to pop out and destroy that samurai. And it looks like he's just going to be going for some sort of like semi-fast fortress. He chopped an extra 200 wood in transition for that second village, just so he'd have the population space to send a couple of military shipments. And he'll maybe follow it up with 700 gold and age with that. And it looks like it probably is 700 gold on the way as his population didn't change. So he'll be trying to age up behind this 8 Chukonu shipment, just getting that out to defend against the Ashigaru to start with.
Yeah, we've got more Ashigaru in queue for Hazza as well here. I mean, those Chukonu should do reasonably against the Ashigaru, right? But the Ashigaru are a little faster than the regular musketeers, so it's probably not so easy to take a sort of well-placed fight against them.
Well, Chukonu are also quite a bit faster than your standard infantry, so they have about the same speed, which I think should be all right for the Chukonu. And Chukonu are actually quite good against heavy infantry compared to a lot of other colonial infantry as well, so I think this should be pretty decent for Tabin for sure.
All right, and he can always hop in his villages as well. I like that, actually. You know, it's kind of like reminds me of the Khmer from Age of Empires 2. You can use the Khmer to hop into the houses with your villagers, and it's a good way to keep them safe. So good to see Tabin doing that here as he gets the coin shipment in. So will this be the semi-FF? It will be. He has got the Confucian Academy being built right now. You have to tell me what the Confucian Academy does for him.
Right, so the Confucian Academy is going to grant him 8 skirmishers upon age up here, as well as train flying crows over time, flying crows being a sort of heavy artillery.
Yeah.
You get one every 4 minutes, so it'll be quite a long time before he actually gets one. But those 8 skirmishers are going to provide a lot of protection against this Ashigaru timing that's coming in. This could be a scary timing, but Chukonu should do all right here, and if he fails, he still has the 8 skirmishers arriving in a minute.
Yep, he just got his first banner army out as well with the Step Riders there. You might want to send them out maybe to raid, perhaps? I don't know. They might not do too well against Ashigaru, right? Or is he just trying to get the snare?
Yeah, mostly just for the stare. And there's not really a lot to raid against Japan either with those Step Riders, to be fair, with all the villagers tucked nice and safely underneath the town center.
Right, yeah, that's true, so, with the cherry orchards. They seem to be so hard to raid, and we saw a couple of matchups yesterday for the NWC, and it was sort of like Germany versus Japan, and Germany was just sort of raiding the shrines because they couldn't really get into their base to do damage, so it's quite nice to see how close the Japanese player can make this. But he's quite far ahead in economic population, is the Japanese player Hazza. So we're expecting Tabin now to try and make a big push, I imagine. As you say, he'll get those skirmishes, and we might see some more military shipments coming in.
Yeah, he'll probably wait for at least one shipment before pushing out, just so he has a more well-rounded unit composition, doesn't have the risk of dying to a batch of Naginata, which we're actually seeing moving across the map right now, so he will be waiting just a little bit for that. And yeah, economic population is definitely in favor of Japan at the moment, but this doesn't really favor in the Wonders so much, or at least not the Summer Palace and stuff. So the Summer Palace as you mentioned earlier, you get a banner army every 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that's around 400-ish resources, maybe a little bit more depending on which banner army you select. So it's worth a few villagers as well as the Confucian Academy providing you with that Flying Crow every 4 minutes is also a small boost to your economy, although it takes a long time to pay off. So
Right.
it's not quite as bad as it looks, although he doesn't really have a lot of market upgrades right now, which is going to hurt, but he should be
he's
okay.
only just built the market, actually, and then he's got the hunting eagles. But he has got a really varied army. He's even bringing his sentries in there as well. He's obviously got the skirmishers, the Chuko Nu. He got some arquebusier in there, redcoats from the consulate. So it's a really varied army. And meanwhile, he's getting raided at the back by the Naganatas, but they're not going to find anything, but they will push him away from the hunt. So I guess Tabun needs to be a little careful here, not to get raided too hard. And actually, that sent him all funny, because he's got a lot of villagers here that are idling and stuck. I don't know if he's noticed that.
Yeah, that's unlucky. I imagine he'll notice them pretty soon.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, now's going to be the time to push out with that redcoat shipment. And he spotted the Naginata, so if he's been checking the deck, you'll know that Haza sent 600 coin, and that could either be for Naginata or for Aegypts. You'll know that it's for Naginata now as the fight starts, and the Nagis try to engage there, but they'll be dissuaded by the swordsman.
Yeah, those Qingdao swordsmen, they're kind of like Doppelsoldners in a little bit, aren't they, I think?
A little bit. Maybe not quite as strong, but definitely the same type of unit. Yeah, for sure.
Right, so we're going to see now, in fact, it's interesting, he's called his, Tabun has called his explorer First to Fortress, and he's definitely living up to that hype, so going to go try and take a fight now, it seems. He's a little bit split with his army, and the Chengdu swordsmen are kind of at the back, but he's going to bring them to the front now, and meanwhile the Ashigaru seems to be a little bit far back as well. It seems to go very well for Tabun in the opening moments of that fight, but he is still backing away slightly. And I'm wondering why he might be backing here. It looks like he has got a good composition to take this on, and it will be indeed Haza who's backing up in the end. We've got some Yamabushi coming in on the left side, but that's sloppy. They'll get cleaned up by the Chuko Nu, the Arquebusier as well, and they seem to just be a free donation to Tabun here as both players disengage. I think that went quite well for Tabun overall.
Yeah, it was alright for Tabun, but I don't think Haza will be too upset with that trade, although losing the clubs at the end was a little bit painful. But he does have the better economy at the moment, right? And replacing those units is going to be a little bit easier for him. And he's got the more mobile army as well with these cavalry mixed in, so he can be a little bit more aggressive, buy a lot of time, and run Tabun around, which is what he's doing right now. And Tabun doesn't really have a lot of room to do much, to be honest, at the moment, since he didn't kill that forward base, and he doesn't have any cavalry mixed into his army just yet.
Yeah, at what point does this start to become sort of impossible for Tabun and start to snowball in Haza's favor? I mean, 52 economic units versus 29 is a significant difference. And as you said, like, Haza may have not come out on top on that fight necessarily, but he can certainly afford to replenish his units. And if he can take a fight like that with a colonial army and can continue to take fights like that with a colonial army, then he's probably in good stead. But we do see the Manchus coming out now for Tabun, and I believe they're very strong anti-cavalry, so this should be good with the Naganatas in there as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty big power spike for Tabun. It's going to be really, really effective against Haza's unit composition here. It looks like Haza's going to be going for a little bit of a flank with these Nagis, trying to get on the side to trap this army and make it harder to kite. But the Redcoat's going to be there to block, and the Manchus as well going to be in a nice position to apply damage to these Ashigaru, and it looks like he's going to be totally fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of anti-cavalry here, actually, when you think about it. Those sentries, even, with 1 HP, still having 28 damage against the cavalry. And there's that first flying crow coming out, blasting away at that forward. And you said earlier, you know, he didn't take down the forward base, but now he has. So maybe Tabun has some momentum here. Maybe Tabun can start to push this. Does Haza have an opportunity or a window to get up to the fortress age? He seems to be at this point pretty stuck in colonial here.
Yeah, it looks like he's definitely trapped, and he's got to be thinking about sending his cherry orchards as his next card, which is a really big investment. So if he wants to age up, he's not going to have a shipment ready for that fortress age. So yeah, he's definitely trapped for the moment. And he's frantically rebuilt those barracks, even rebuilding a third barracks in the back just in case this one on the front goes down. but it's looking pretty tough. He needs to like think about maybe transitioning into Yumi or something like that. He's getting his wood upgrades right now, so he might be thinking about doing that. But it looks like the Ashinagi are not going to be very effective against this unit composition.
No, and meanwhile, we do see Hazza trying to raid. He will pick up a couple of villagers, and he's definitely going to be pushing Tabun away from his hunt, but I don't think Tabun really cares. He's got this massive group of units on the front of Hazza's base, and Hazza cannot engage this. He's losing his buildings on the front, and I'm wondering if he's going to be able to do something here. He did just send those 2 cherry orchards, so he doesn't have a military shipment on the way, and at the moment he's just trying to preserve his army and maybe build up with these rear barracks here.
Yeah, I don't know how well that's going to work for him. He's got a few Yumi out now, which will do a little bit better against this unit composition, but definitely not enough with this town center kind of under fire at the moment. Naginata coming in for a flank, though, maybe trying to pick off the flying crow.
But the villagers are getting involved.
The redcoats in position. Yeah, the Vills coming in. This is sort of the desperation fight for Hazza here.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. Those villagers getting stuck in, I guess just kind of meat shield a little bit. And the Flying Crow still in there, firing away, doing a lot of damage to those Ashigaru on the left side. While at the back, the Manchus are staying very safe in the rear, and most of those Naginata are taken out now as well. So should be a cleanup for Tabun by the looks of things. 72 military population against 23 as a few more Ashis pop out. But he's just lost a huge number of villagers there, and even if Tabun were to go back now, that's going to sting Hazza, as that sort of eco lead was the only thing he was really hanging on to in this game at the moment.
Yeah, it's looking rough now after that fight has failed. He lost a lot of villagers in that fight too, and even though like economically he's still fine, it's definitely going to hurt him and make this follow-up a lot worse if he manages to hold here, which it's looking like he might not be able to. Not sure what is next for him. He could maybe send Colonial Militia as his next card, or Enlist Irregulars, I believe the card is called. Yeah, no, going to be 5 Yumi archers. And
look at those Changdao swordsmen coming in as well at the end there to close things out. I feel like those redcoats did so much for Tabun. I mean, he kept most of them alive that whole time, and they're pretty formidable units at this point in the game. Obviously, I think the Arquebusier as well, right? Like a kind of a skirmisher unit, able to deal with the Ashigaru quite nicely as well. And all around, it just felt like Tabun had that sort of superior unit composition. Hazza was just going for the Ashis and the Naginata, and meanwhile Tabun had just a little bit of everything, and that just seemed to work out so well for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Hazza's build was a little bit all in, and if you don't accomplish anything with that build early on, then that tech advantage is going to be really hard to overcome, which ended up to be the case here. He didn't get to send his villager shipments until basically Tabun was like getting ready to push his base, so they didn't have time to really pay off or anything like that. And yeah, it was just kind of a rough position for him from the get-go after the Chuko Nu sort of shut down the aggression there.
Yeah, and I feel a bit foolish, actually. I said, what can Tabun do to stop this from snowballing in Hazza's favor with this huge eco lead? It's really just my pea-sized Age of Empires 2 brain talking when I say that, because in AoE 2 that kind of eco lead would just be sort of impossible to come back from. But I guess with the unit shipments, those 9 Manchus, the 10 I don't know what he sent, Arquebusier there, and the 11 Changdao swordsmen, like just massively building up that military and allowing him to just push through. And he's like, well, I don't care if you've got more economy, you haven't got any military to protect it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. The shipments, in particular, are quite good for China in the Fortress Age, whereas in the Colonial Age, Japan has sort of like among some of the weakest shipments in the game, aside from their upgrades, and then have to invest in cherry orchards later, too. So the shipments are definitely a big factor of the economy that doesn't really get displayed by that economic population on the UI.
Yeah, right.
And then the tech advantage on top of that just makes it quite good for China, unless he's already taken some damage.
Well, there you go. Game 1 going in the way of Tabun. And that's the first time I've seen a Chinese win in all my time casting AoE 3, which is about 3 days. So good stuff right there. Haza will obviously now get the opportunity to counter-pick on Baja California, a map which I'm actually really liking. It seems to be vetoed out quite a lot at the moment in the New World Championship, but it's also a map which can provide some really nice games. Seeing a couple of games yesterday on this map where we saw a really close fight for land and sea at the same time, making it really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I quite enjoy watching and playing on this map as well. But it definitely pushes some players outside of their comfort zones, which is maybe why we don't see it so much.
Right.
You have to be a little bit more creative sometimes with your build order and stuff like that, and how you approach your opponent's build order if they're going for something like water, especially if they're going for both sides of the water, and stuff like that. So I'm definitely interested as well.
We will see, and it looks like Taban is locking in Japanese as his first civ here, and immediately has her going for the Germans. How do you feel about these civs on this map? Do you think they both have that potential to go land and sea, or do you think it's going to be more of a ignore one and focus all on the other?
Well, Germany sort of traditionally doesn't go water unless you're ASAMC. Just because the investment is a lot larger for them because they don't have that schooner shipment. They don't have the same level of warship upgrades as a lot of other civilizations, so they sort of prefer to stick to the land where their army is sort of really strong, and they can just abuse really strong timings against water. But Japan, on the other hand, actually has quite solid water play.
Yeah, they can send the three fishing ships as their age 1 shipment, right? And that's arguably one of the better shipments they could send if they're not going for Heavenly Kami on this map. It's kind of interesting, and we'll see how that develops. But everybody in the chat, thank you for watching, tuning in. Thank you for the gift subs again, Alex the Cat. I will spank you, Anonymous, with 2 gift subs as well. Really appreciate that, but I'm not going to spend the time to read them all out here because we do have the players waiting to go into the second game, and there was quite a lot of gift subs. But really appreciate the support, and thank you for watching and tuning in. We hope you're going to enjoy this series as we're getting ready to go into map 2, which is Baja California. We can bring that up on the screen as I'll click in here. So, it's going to be Taban leading the series 1-0 so far. Haza trailing, but he will be counter-picking Taban's Japanese with the Germans. And as Maito just said, the Germans don't really have such an opportunity to go for water unless you're ASAMC. It seems like any asterisk in the game is followed by unless it's ASAMC. That's what I'm picking up so far.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can't pin down Ace. He's
can't contain this man.
He's just gonna do what he wants, and you can't stop him. So,
yeah, I love it. Watching him play against Tit yesterday in the New World Championship round of 32. And enjoyable games. A's looking really good at the moment. But we're spawning in now. Taban over to the west of the map in the blue, and in the east it will be Haza playing on his General 52 account in the red. So what are your main thoughts about this one, Maito?
Well, as you saw, actually I guess you didn't see it last game, but where am I going with this? Japan, of course, traditionally not very strong in the early game, and if they do want to be a little bit stronger in the early game, they have to make some sacrifices in their build order. Like last game, we saw that Haza decided to go for 2 villagers instead of Heavenly Kami, which is quite a bit worse later on. He also went for the Torii Gates, which is a little bit all in. It doesn't give you the same bonus that the Toshogu Shrine would, for sure. So as a result, Germany is not under a lot of threat early on, which means they can get up to the Fortress Age or even the Industrial Age sometimes very, very easily. Which is where they're strongest by far. And so we usually end up seeing a lot of games with Germany and Japan going to the Fortress Age. But on the other hand, it also means that since Germany doesn't want to stick in colonial very long, sometimes that does give Japan a little bit of room to boom with the shrines in the colonial age that aren't going to be under super big threat of being sieged.
Yeah.
While Germany tries to age. So
okay.
This is also one of the matchups where I think Japan is sort of okay, but I still think Germany is definitely favored.
Yeah, just waiting to see what Tabin sends as his first card. I noticed he's done the Portuguese consulate, so that seems to be the sort of more greedy opening. In this case, we've got Hazza instead going for the trading post up in the north there, and I'm guessing he's gone for the one in the north to try and get that pass before the caravan sort of resets. I think he got it as well, and he'll get the second pass now. But Tabin still hasn't selected a deck by the looks of things. Not sure what that's about, because it looks like he's spent his shipment, but I don't see his deck.
If you go to, so if you select the deck too early, then it kind of bugs a little bit. So if you go to the menu and click player summary and then select his deck from there, it should be able to you should be able to see it pretty easily there.
Yeah, got it now. And actually, he will open with the 3 fishing boats. We sort of mentioned that before the game started. It does seem to be strong on this map, as, you know, they're not going to be contested early on. You know, the shrines could be contested quite early if Hazza was to make some Ulan and start raiding. Maybe, you know, he makes some pike and crossbow play and starts raiding the shrines with pikes. Raiding the fishing boats is a lot more of a bigger investment, I feel, and it's a very safe opening for Tabin here.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I like that he decided to he changed his shipment point and sent them into Hazza's side.
Yeah.
Because normally I think if Hazza's just going to try and punish that blindly with like a caravel shipment or something, he'll just try and ship it onto Tabin's side of the map, right?
Yeah, right.
So in this case,
mind games there.
Yeah, if he does go for the blind counter, then those fishing boats are safe.
Yeah, and we will see if he does do that. At the moment, we do see the potential for water in Hazza's deck. He's got the 2 caravels there and the frigate in Age 3, as well as the improved warships tech. But you know, this looks pretty like a pretty standard German deck here, doesn't it? Nothing sort of out of the ordinary. He's got the Jaegers in there. He's got the Black Riders in there. Looks pretty standard to me. But he has got the he's got the Lipizzaner cavalry in Age 4, which I haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's quite a good card, but normally you prefer something else just because it's a little bit of a slower card. But the fact that he has that in his deck, and he also has the Treaty of Westphalia, that church improvement card, is a little bit non-standard. So we could maybe see some sort of industrial play from him. Just judging on those 2 cards alone, it definitely does leave some options open. But it's not restricted by them by any means. And it looks like it is actually going to be a forward settler wagon coming across the map, so maybe going to be some sort of tower rush or something.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of Kaiser explaining to me how the tower rush works here. Not like in AoE 2, but dropping the towers, sending those forward shipments, who might send the 8 crossbow, for example, to that tower, and then push quite aggressively with the barracks as well. But Tabin here is going up with the Toshogu Shrine. This is by all means not all in, as we saw Hazza as approached last game.
Weird. Okay, so it's not... This might be like a fake out tower rush because he's constructing a dock now. Well,
that means he's probably scouted these fish, and if not scouted them, then he either plans on fishing here himself. Is it? Yeah. Okay. So Tabin's actually building a fish at the moment. He's got a. Hold on a second. It says Tabin's sending a training fishing fleet. But I don't see a dock from him.
Oh, no, so at the Portuguese consulate,
I see.
There's a tech you can get for 250 export that will send you 3 fishing boats.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
he's actually going to send them to the south.
Yeah, and that just makes it a little bit harder as well for Hazza to punish both sets of fishing boats. But yeah, Hazza going for water, which is definitely... not standard. Also building a second trading post, and no military building yet, or no forward tower, or anything like that. So being very greedy at the moment. Imagine we're going to see maybe a 3 settler wagon shipment or 700 wood coming in, and it's going to be that 700 wood just to produce some more fishing boats, maybe get that stagecoach upgrade or something. But now finally building a barracks. And yeah, this is definitely a little bit unorthodox for Germany.
Yeah, I quite like it. It's quite sort of chilled out, isn't it? It's like, yeah, let's just agree to not fight for a bit. Tabin is taking quite a defensive approach as well, walling himself in. But he is now building a barracks and a stable, so we might see some production there. We've got Yumi archers out for him at the moment, and we've got crossbow in queue from this racks at the front as well. But without the tower, it won't be that sort of forward shipments like we've seen before. And I guess he's just going to be sending the economic shipments. But then, as I say that, he does send 8 crossbow from his TC at home.
Yeah, he might be a little bit worried that Tabin will overreact to that forward base and maybe have a lot more units early on than he otherwise would have. And then he'd be in danger of sort of losing that position and then losing the trading post and map control and all that. So that just really makes sure that that can't happen. And he'll be able to easily mix in something else like 3 settler wagons later on. So it's not really a big deal. But it looks like he's going to be going for a second dock, actually, on the side here. So really investing into the fish boob.
And he actually hasn't scouted the fishing ships at the top, I'm guessing. Otherwise, he might have done something about that already. But at the moment, just sitting back, sort of sieging the shrines, he probably knows full well that he can't take a fight inside of Tabin's base too easily. It's quite nicely walled up. And we've got Tabin with some Naginata riders and Yumi archers.
This could be dangerous.
He's far away from any safety. And I think he's just going to get beat up here, right?
Yeah, the Ulans will sort of dissuade him a little bit, but they're a little bit weaker against cavalry in low numbers than normal. And yeah, they're going to get cleaned up pretty easily. And then these crossbows are going to be making a run for it. The pikemen are frantically moving across the map towards the crossbows to try to save them, dropping a couple back to avoid the snare on the group there. It looks like he might save some of them, but that's definitely a costly trade for Haza.
And I think Tabin there is going to try and micro down this fight and take out those pikes. We have got some Ulan at the backside coming in toward the Yumi Archer. But so far, this is going really well for Tabin here by the looks of things. If he can take out these Ulan, he might be able to clean this up. I don't know if he's got more units coming over. But no, there are actually more pikemen coming in from the rear. But still, I mean, these Yumi Archers are really strong. And he's still doing quite well. But we'll probably have to get pushed back a little bit here as those extra pikemen come through. He's actually training Ashigaru at the moment as well. We've got some of those coming over now, and he's going to link up with those, and maybe he'll be able to turn this around onto the crossbows.
Yeah, might be able to. Looks like both players are going to disengage there. Haza narrowly avoiding disaster right there, saving a decent number of the crossbows, and I think overall the trade was probably slightly better for Tabin, but it wasn't that bad for Haza either, so I don't think he'll be too upset about that. And economically, it looks like Haza's actually overtaken Japan at this point, which is definitely not something you would normally see from Germany at this stage in the game, especially if you've got like a forward base and stuff like that. But he's got a decent number of fishing ships. He's got gill nets, that upgrade coming in for them now. So he's looking pretty solid at the moment. Yeah,
that fishing economy sort of really pulling him ahead here. And also sending the 3 settler wagons as well. And what's this? We see
I think he's going to drop his shipment point here maybe and send 2 caravels or something.
Yeah, he just sent 700 gold. So I'm wondering if he was thinking about aging there. But it's not going to be the age just yet. And the shipment point hasn't moved yet either, but maybe he's tempted. He does actually have the 2 trade posts at the moment, but there's no stagecoach.
I think he wants to hold off on stagecoach probably until he can clean up Japan's trading post. And yeah, it looks like he's not going to be changing the shipment point just yet, as you mentioned. Going to be 600 gold instead. And looks like he's just going to use that to fuel some more Ulan and Doppelsoldner production.
Yeah, I do question though, can he reasonably push into Tabin here? Like, at this point, he seems to have pretty good map control. Tabin hasn't really pushed out too much, but it looks like we'll see an engagement here actually. The Ulan going to run head first into those Naginata. He pulls them back at the last second to avoid a snare and does get out, but he will get caught here. Those Nagas going headlong into this engagement. The Doppelsodners at the back trying to get in there as the Naginatas are pulled back. And of course, if you're Tabin here, you're going to try and focus those Doppelsodners down, take them out the fight, and let those Naginatas engage. All the Doppelsodners are dead, and this has got to go well for Tabin.
Yeah, he's got more Dops in Kyoto at this barracks, and I imagine, here they go. They pop out right on top of the army, and that's going to save Haza the fight, it looks like, as the Nagi sort of get cleaned up there, and a couple of Dops getting onto the Ashigaru as well. But actually, it might be all right for Tabin. It looks like another batch of Nagis coming in. And
yeah, man, it's so dangerous fighting under these barracks and stable. It's not like the units come out one by one. It's like, nope, suddenly 5 Doppelsodners right on top of your Naginata. But all in all, yeah, it looks like Taban will clean this up. But both of them losing quite a lot of units in that fight, but still, pretty good for Taban here.
Yeah, it's looking like it went all right for him. But I think Hazza is still all right behind this. Looks like that settler wagon might get cleaned up, which is unfortunate. But economically, he's still pretty far ahead. And I don't think there's enough units here to really kill the military buildings. He's sort of got to back off and respect the fact that there could be Dops or something popping. Looks like it's going to be Ulans for the moment, getting onto those Yumi, picking a couple off. And there's Dops in queue, but doesn't look like he has the resources to finish that batch. And it looks like it's not going to be popping out anytime soon anyway.
No, and those Ulan just going to get chased away. A couple of donations to Taban there, it seems. And the last Ulan's probably going to get, well, might get out, but getting pretty low. Oh no, the Dops are coming though. And wow, Hazza's still like trying to take this fight here. Would you have preferred to maybe cancel the Dops, or do you think this is reasonable?
Well, he's killed a few units with them, so it seems like it might be okay. He's going to save a couple of them as well. And he's buying himself a lot of time here, and he knows that he's got a solid economy behind this, so he can kind of afford to take slightly suboptimal trades. So I don't think he's too worried about this, and he is actually buying a lot of time for these military buildings to stay alive for the time being anyway.
We also got the 2 caravels now coming down in the south. He's going to find both the fishing boats there, and we know Taban doesn't have a big sort of water economy anyway. But he will still at least keep the 3 fishing boats in the north alive for now. But yeah, it's 62 eco here versus the 50 of Taban. Taban seems to be taking pretty good fights so far in this game and sort of pulling ahead in military. We've got these shipments coming in from Hazza, but they're having to sort of run all the way over the map to join the fight. And by that point, you know, he's already lost a few units just due to being outnumbered.
Yeah, looks like the Dops are going to get an okay trade against the infantry here. Hulan's going to come in and try and reinforce along with the 3 Dops from the shipment coming across the map, and the 2 Dops that he saved earlier coming in for a flank. Could be another batch of units popping soon as well. This could be Hazza's opportunity to turn things around. He does get into melee with those Nagis. And looks like those units aren't going to be popping from the military buildings just yet, so Taban might be able to clean these Dops up no problem.
Yeah, I feel like Hazza's sort of funneling his units in, you know, in small numbers here, and it certainly doesn't help not having that outpost at the front, because I guess if he didn't have to run his army over from his town center every time, he might be taking better fights, as he would have grouped his army much sooner. But at the moment, you know, he's sent Treaty of Westphalia here. And the Dops are coming out on the backside, so he's continuing to fight and fight and fight here. I'd be interested to see the sort of units lost at this point. Like, they're both trading off so many units against each other, and maybe this is the time where Hazza finally comes out on top. But we do have more Nagis coming in, more Ashigaru coming in, and both players just sort of funneling everything into this middle of the map here.
Yeah, well, there's one Dop on the side here, just getting a snare onto the Ashigaru might allow him to get into combat with the other units there. And it looks like this is going to be good for Hazza. But behind this, you know, he did send Treaty of Westphalia, which is actually not a very powerful shipment at this stage in the game. Going to be forced to retreat there as those clubs show up. But yeah, the only thing you can get from that card right now as Germany is, well, I guess you get the 2 free Ulans that come with it, which is all right. But they only have 1 tech in the Colonial Age. All the other ones are available later in the game. And it allows your infantry to be quite a bit faster. I think it's 20% faster, but it also makes them like 10% more expensive. So you have to be a little bit careful about when you choose to get that. But if he does get a really big massive Dops and then gets that tech, he could end up in a situation where the massive Dops can just run straight in and get on top of the units before Taban really has opportunity to react.
Yeah,
Could be strong, but it's definitely a little bit risky with that cost increase.
And that's kind of their biggest weakness, isn't it? Just sort of like not being able to get into range. If there's like a huge mass of Yumi Archer and Ashigaru, like just actually closing the gap is a problem. But oh man, look at that. The Caravel sieging this stable at the back. That's annoying, and it's probably in range here. Maybe it might be in range with some villagers on the cherry orchard as well.
Yeah, it could be. Be pretty close, but yeah, losing that stable gonna hurt just a little bit, but not the end of the world probably for Taban. Meanwhile, though, in the middle of the map, Tabin is trying to break these military buildings once again, and Haza just going to sit back this time, bide his time, wait for a few more units to pop out. Actually, it looks like he's just going to be giving up those military buildings. If you take a look, he's actually aging up to Fortress now, and he's rebuilt those military buildings elsewhere, so wants to get to the Fortress age before continuing the fight.
Yeah, so this is the time now for Tabin to sort of maybe think about that and maybe follow him up at this point. I mean, he's got a lot of food in the bank. He's just lacking the coin at the moment. The problem is he's already sent his 600 coin shipments twice, so not going to have a big sort of increase in coin anytime soon. What do you do at this point? Just keep spamming the units out and trying to make a big push now when you sense that, hey, you might be aging here?
Yeah, at this stage in the game, staying colonial is definitely an option. When you're aging up this late, you've got to know that all the villagers are not going to be underneath the town center, so he's at risk to losing a lot of vills to this timing. He loses a couple on the side there. So if Tabin can find the vills, he could have a really, really strong chance to win right now. But looking at his macro as well, he's got a lot of food in the bank, so he could maybe consider remacroing a little bit and following up to Fortress. But definitely both options are okay here. And it looks like one Nagi going to be scouting the
the gold
villagers
there
on that gold mine and the military buildings, and that's going to be where the army heads to before hasn't managed to get any of those big military shipments out, any of those veteran upgrades. And
he's going straight for veteran DOPS actually, and he's also got the Tilly's discipline, which is the one that you were referencing earlier, the infantry marching faster but costs slightly more. So these DOPS could be really scary. I'm going to be interested to see how good they are. I mean, obviously there's not a huge amount of cavalry here from Tabin actually. He's sort of focusing a lot more on the Ashigaru, which are now upgraded with the musket attack as well. But we'll see how this goes. The Doppelsodden is here. Oh wow, he's going to actually sandwich him. It's going to be a Haza sandwich at the moment with Tabin coming in on the left side, and we'll see if Tabin can clean this up. It's going to be quite a scary army. The war wagons popping out of the stable here as well, and it looks like the divide and conquer for Haza might work out quite nicely here.
Yeah, managing to pick off that isolated group of Ashigaru. All of his vills are being forced to idle at the moment, which means he might not have a lot of reinforcing batches coming behind this, but he is doing a really good job at getting good trades with these Doppelsoldners. A group of skirms popping out in the back as well, and all the Nagis have sort of gone down, so those skirms are sort of able to freely hit away at the Ashigaru. Looks like the Dops also... Oh, actually...
I'm getting kited a bit.
Yeah, the big reinforcing batch of Ashigaru coming in, and also a really nice split on his Ashi to sort of avoid a lot of the area damage from the Doppelsoldners. Sort of results in him coming out on top.
Yeah, look at that. 51 military now versus the 23, right after those Doppelsoldners got some stacked upgrades as well. And I think Tabin there, you know, it started off quite well for Haza. Tabin's army was split into two halves, and Haza was very easily able to clean up the group on the left. But after that, he just didn't have the mass, and the reinforcing units from Tabin continuing to stream in, allowing him to clean that fight or clean that up quite nicely. Looks like we've got a little bit of gold mine sharing at the top there, and Haza's going to build an outpost there as well.
Yeah.
But Tabin here just going around cleaning up some vills and looking pretty good at the moment.
And normally, with this massive Ashigaru, after winning a fight like that, it would be pretty difficult to deal with them, as they're a lot faster than other infantry. But with that Tilly's discipline, he's actually able to kite really effectively with these skirmishers. And that makes using these Ashigarus really difficult. He's also sticking next to the coastline a little bit, so he does have the opportunity to sort of send maybe a frigate or something if he really wants to try and save this army. But it's looking tough at this point.
Wow.
The Ashigaru mass proving to be a little bit too much.
His Ashigaru are so good, and just going to chase down these war wagons and the skirmishers now. And as you said, that Tilly's discipline is definitely making it harder to kite for the Ashis. But at the end of the day, Haza here has just got very little left. And his eco is very split as well. A lot of his villages in the north of the map are quite exposed. And I think Tabin is in a great position now to actually clean up like 20 or so villager population here.
Yeah, it's definitely looking scary. He hasn't quite spotted the tower, but it looks like he will be spotting it now. He will know where those villagers are. He's got another reinforcing batch of Ashi coming from the west and southern sides. But these skirmishers are able to still just freely hit here. He sort of needs some Naginata maybe to clean these up.
Yeah,
there's no way the Ashigaru can catch them.
Right. Actually, no. Well, there is another batch of war wagons coming in, but yeah, I mean, if he can snare them and take the fight, then he would just clean them up completely. But look at that outpost going down, and there's 13 villagers in there, and they're about to get blasted. They can stand and fight if they like, but they are going to go down in the end. The Greatcoats will not save them here as they get taken out pretty quickly. Dops popping out of this barracks there, but that's not going to be enough. 2 Dops, and just this massive Ashigaru looking so good at the moment. Really doing a good job of lowering that eco population of Hazza, and Hazza here wondering where it's all gone wrong.
Yeah, and at this point, it looks like Tabin's just gone with the brute force method. Despite killing all the villagers as well, he's still continuing to train units, not looking to age up just yet. I suppose he does have to send... Or no, he already sent Cherry Orchards again, so never mind. But yeah, looks like the skirmishers, despite having that speed upgrade, are going to get trapped into this corner here with nowhere to run. And it doesn't look like he has a shipment available to really send any warships to save his day either. Going to be losing some more villagers behind this. But actually, the Ashigaru running away for some reason.
I think he's just going to go get his army together and then clean it up, maybe a little bit more cost effectively. Yeah,
I suppose that's a reasonable thing to do. It's not like he is on a super big clock right now after killing all those villagers.
But Hazza still has a reasonable military force. He has got a bunch of Ulan coming across the middle of the map, and he's looking now to maybe siege down some shrines. Speaking of shrines, there's a lot of shrines up here for Tabin. He's been building them all over the place, and he's got them all set to coin at the moment. So just continuing to focus on food with his vills, and the shrines bringing in the coin. And it's training more and more and more of those Ashigaru, adding in some Yumi archers now as well. And it looks like, yeah, Hazza's going to go for the raid. But yeah, I feel like it's too little at this point.
Yeah, it seems like those Ulans are on a suicide mission going to the back of the base here. There's not going to be anywhere for them to run with the army on the north side here, going to be cutting them off. And I guess he just wanted to go for what he hoped would be like a desperation raid where he gets really lucky and kills like 10 or 15 vills. With those Ulans. So sieging the shrines would take a really, really long time, so kind of a desperation move right there. Doesn't pay off for him, sadly.
No, and it doesn't look like he's in a very good position anymore. I mean, he might be one age up, but his military population is so low right now, and he's fallen behind significantly in that eco as well. So, you know, he can continue to make these sort of, you know, skirmishers and doppelsodners, but he's just struggling to catch up in raw numbers. And at the end of the day, Tabin might have the, you know, inferior army composition, but he's also going to have way more numbers on the field to overwhelm Hazza in this situation. Hazza losing his barracks as well, that's annoying, right? Like, he's going to have to rebuild that before he can even train any more units.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a second turn center up on the bottom side of the map, trying to recoup some of those economic losses, but that's going to be the GG, it looks like.
Yeah, it does. I think he's just sort of feeling a little bit overwhelmed there, losing so much map control. And, of course, you know, he had all those fishing ships, but at this point, the food in the water at the north has all been fished out, and his fish in the bottom have only just started getting going down there. But unfortunately for Hazza there, it looked really good at one point. But, you know, after Tabin started with that big push, as soon as Hazza reached Fortress, he just sort of overwhelmed him. Do you think maybe going for the Doppelsodners was a misplay in this case?
Yeah, it's not very standard to go for Dops. I think Hazza playing a little bit unorthodoxly in the series. Maybe just having a little bit of fun with the show match, you know. Tilly's discipline is not something you normally see, nor do you normally see Dops, especially against Japan. So, yeah, definitely not something you would normally do, nor is it considered to be the best strategy in the world.
Yeah, I'm surprised really, because I think, you know, after he stabilized in the mid game, you know, we saw that fight for quite some time over the. I've gone to like a home city screen now. I don't know how to get back to the game. Oh, it's fine. I'll do that. There we go. Nope, still doesn't work. No, I got it. I clicked on the minimap.
Okay.
Got it. So after he won that sort of fight in the middle, you know, where Tabin was pushing out and he kept reinforcing and reinforcing, eventually he came out on top. just enough that he could go up to the Fortress Age. At that point, it's just like the Dops didn't seem to be the best choice. There wasn't that many Naginata out, and he'd kind of invested a little bit with the church upgrade, getting the Tilly's discipline. But I don't think he really think he had to follow through with that. I think he could have very easily gone into more Ulan, for example, or gone for more skirmishers, for example, to deal with the Ashigaru here.
Yeah, it could have been, although it was just kind of an unfortunate time to try to age, I guess. With them having such close trades back and forth for the past several minutes before he did that, and he sort of clicked up when his villagers are at their most exposed, and Tabin's sort of at his strongest point with that army mass, and as a result, he didn't quite have the time to really get the units out that he would normally like against that unit composition when he did get into Fortress.